FBI agent!
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Say hello to my little friend!
Can you dig it?
We're gonna start with our next guest, Spice Williams-Crosby. She's a very talented woman. She has multiple black belts. She's a mama, she's a doctor, fight coordinator, and she has a particular program called I Fight for My Life. Welcome, Spice.
Thank you, Lawrence. It's good to be here. Appreciate you asking me to come in and chat with you.
Thank you. We're going to just get right to it.
Uh-oh.
How did you get in the film business or the stunt business, and what led you there?
Well, let's see. I was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley. I have a twin sister, so when you come out of the womb, you already have pigtails and tap shoes on. And we sang, played guitar, played piano. We were all, into, not my family, but just my twin sister and I. And, but of course, you never thought you could make a living doing that. So I followed in my father's footsteps and I went into medicine. Oh. And I was a treatment nurse and a medical transcriber. And I always did choir and gymnastics and creative things in school, but I got asked to, my twin sister and I, to go on the road with a musical group. And we did, and eventually broke away and formed our own group called Sugar and Spice.
Wow.
That's where I got my nickname.
Nice.
And we toured for 10 years. I was signed with 20th Century Records as a staff songwriter, and I had a couple songs hit Billboard and won some American Song Festivals. And I got off the road in 1978 because my dream ever since I was a little girl was to be an actress.
Nice.
So I started studying acting, and the little bit of money I got from 20th Century Records was not enough to pay for my acting lessons, so I had to take another job in a gymnasium, and that's where I started working out and getting physically fit. And which I needed to, because the life on the road, I had already had 3 drug and alcohol overdoses.
Wow.
And I was detoxing, cleaning out, got fat, had a lot of health issues. And I thought, well, this will be a way to study my acting and also get healthy. And so as I got acting jobs, I also got called in to do a guest star role on Fall Guy.
Okay.
And the stunt coordinator was Mickey Gilbert.
All right.
Lovely, lovely, love Mickey. But then the wrestling guy they brought in was Judo Gene LaBelle.
Now, I want to talk about this because there's a few incidents when we first met up. We'll talk about that later on. But you told me the day you met Gene LaBelle and what occurred. Why don't you tell the audience how that all went down?
Well, I had studied, I heard that they were looking for some actresses that could wrestle. So I went and teamed up with a girlfriend of mine, and we went and met Mildred Burke, world-renowned, undefeated, 5,000 matches, world-famous female wrestler. And I studied with her, and I started wrestling. It's better than waiting on tables. I was making money at the Olympic Auditorium and making money wrestling. And so...
What was the Olympic Auditorium?
That was Judo Gene LaBelle.
No, where?
Oh, where?
Yeah.
Downtown L.A.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, and Uncle Gene's mom owned it.
Okay.
So I was a wrestler making money on the side to support my acting habits. And so I wanted to get All the Marbles. That was a movie, All the Marbles, with, God, what was his name? You know, the one eye that went, anyway.
All right, Marty Feldman.
No, that was... Okay, I'll remember it.
Sure.
See, this is the second thing to go is your memory. But anyway, I didn't get the part.
Okay.
But right after that, I got called to go in and guest star on Fall Guy as a wrestler. So here I show up, and I'm a guest star actress, but I meet Mickey Gilbert, who says I'm the stunt coordinator, but the guy who's going to be technically advising the wrestling is Judo Gene LaBelle. Okay. And I'm like, whatever. So he started making me do things like setting up this way, and I go, well, I always set up like this, and he goes, well, you're gonna set up this way, and I was like, this guy's a jerk. And he was like taking over the rope, and I'm like, well, I don't know, and he'd grab me and throw me over the rope, and then he'd have the other girls be monkey flipping me and doing all kinds, and I'm thinking, this guy's gonna get me killed. And when we finished, we had to wrestle in Jell-O. We had to hit the ring. We were tag teaming and flying all over the place. It was called Rico's Rockets, and it was a famous fall guy thing. And so at the end of it, my agent showed up because she was going to give Mr. Gene LaBelle a piece of her mind for treating me like such a jerk. And he charmed her to death.
Oh.
And she came up to me and she goes, this is the guy you think is a jerk? I think he's lovely. And I'm like, darlings, what are you talking about? So he came up to me and he goes, you know how Uncle Gene talks. You'd make a pretty good stunt girl. And I said, well, quite frankly, I'm an actress. And he goes, yeah, well, while you're starving to death being an actress, you want to make some money being a stunt girl. I was like, what do I have to do? And he goes, keep your damn mouth shut and do what I say. And I thought, well, that's a stunt in itself. So I did. And he taught me motorcycle riding and stair falls and judo and everything. And before I knew it, I was getting called out by Ernie Arsati. My first kind of stunt job was working with Rock Hudson and Jack Scalia.
Wow.
And I played a judo instructor, and here I am flipping these guys all over the place. And then Jack Scalia and Rock Hudson, God bless him, what a wonderful man, came up to me and said, you're an actress. And I was like, well, yes, I am. And he goes, they turned to the director and said, let's give her some lines. And then Ernie came up to me and said, here, you're going to have to sign another contract. And I said, why? I was such a newbie. And he said, well, because you're on a stunt contract, but now you're going to be on an acting contract, and you'll get paid twice. And I'm like, I think I like this job.
Sure.
And it steamrolled from there. And then I wanted to be in a movie that I was told about, Getting Physical.
Okay.
And I heard about it from a casting director in the gym, and she said, I'll give you about 3 months to get your body in shape if you want to come in and play a world-class bodybuilder. So I trained. I was like a Rocky, crazy, up at 4:30 in the morning,
right,
running, and I'm a vegan. So, but trust me, I was pounding a lot of stuff. And I went in and auditioned, and I got that job. So now I had muscles. Now I had the ability to fight, and I was acting. So I kind of created that action actress icon. And people were hiring me for, she can say lines, she can walk and talk and hit the ground at the same time. And that's kind of what started it off, being an actress and a stunt woman.
You're technically the first female superhero out there. To some degree, no? There was a few before you?
Well, I don't want to claim that. I was the first vegan bodybuilder, I know that. I was squatting 315 and benching 225, drug-free and animal-free.
Nice. And I want the audience to know, when Gene threw you over, what did you land on?
Oh, well, I'm lucky I was in the ring. I'll never forget. I mean, the audience, oh my God, they must have had 1,000 people in this audience. Wow. And the ring, and it was a tag team, and it was the final episode of this show. Not episode, but the end scene of this episode. And the director went up and whispered something into Uncle Gene's ear. And he goes, yeah, she can do it. And I'm like, what? Fill me in. And he goes, you're going to stand on the rope here, and then you're going to flip over into the middle of the ring. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I can do that. He just grabbed me and threw me. She can do it. And I was like, oh, my God. So I did. I went, well, when they say action and the curtains go up, it's amazing what you can do.
Yeah, the only point I was making out of that little story was the idea is that, you have to be tough and you keep your mouth shut and you just do it. I mean, you've worked your way up the ranks. It's not an easy thing to do, but you got to be a tough gal and listen and then execute based on Gene LaBelle.
Well, you said something really important. Well, first of all, hitting the ground is fun for me. I'm a ground pounder because I know how to hit the ground.
Right.
There's a lot of girls that are incredibly wonderful in the air, and incredibly wonderful flying in their gymnastics and stuff, but they don't hit the ground every day. As a martial artist, I hit the ground every day. I know how to hit the ground. Sometimes I've had, like Sensei Phil Tan.
Okay.
Wonderful stunt coordinator,
Yeah.
actor, everything. And he lines boxes up for me, and I'm like, what are those for? And he goes, well, you don't want to hit the ground. I go, move the boxes. I hit the ground.
No, I've seen you a few times. There was one time you were doing something with Heidi. I forgot her last name, but you hit that pavement. I mean, she's pretty young, and you hit that pound. You hit it at least in that hour time, at least 150 times. And I'm just like, I'm cringing by like the 20th, like, damn. So yeah, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, and you can deliver.
If you know how to hit the ground, it feels great. I just had a wonderful experience on Terminator with Joel Kramer, stunt coordinator. And there were like 12 of the top stunt coordinators in the business. And he brought me in to play a soldier.
Okay.
I was so honored that he would remember me and bring me in. Of course, he's Uncle Joel, so I'd kill him if he didn't. But
Yeah.
but I never take anything for granted.
Good for you.
And so we had machine guns, and we had to push little buttons to blow ourselves up. And he came up to me and he said, "Can you do a Home Alone?" And a Home Alone
explain that.
Kick your legs all the way up and flat back it. And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And he goes, "Now look, you got some of the top stunt coordinators. And all these guys are pretty tough, so I want to see you take it higher, faster, and harder. I want you to make them all look like pussies." I said, "Yes, sir." And so action came, and I was like, brr, brr, pushing buttons, bam, 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 and then kabam! And I took it up so high when I hit, it felt, really good. And so when he said cut, he came up to me and goes, "Are you okay?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "No, really, Spice, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." And he's like, "Yeah, but you must have gotten up at least 4 feet." And I go, "Good." And he goes, "No, really, are you okay?" I go, "Get away from me. I'm fine." And we must have done it 6 or 7 more times. And he called me the next day and even told my husband, he goes, "I am not blowing smoke." She was amazing. She outshined herself. And
that's coming from a top guy, There's something that you're actually a perfect person to ask this question. I was doing some research, and I came across this particular thing where guys now in the current army are not able to keep up to the basic training of World War II. And here you have this little guy doing the boot camp, carrying these 200-pound men, but now men are generally bigger, they're stronger, but yet they can't do that basic boot camp.
That's really interesting that you said that, because I work with a lot of Navy SEALs. In fact, I just coordinated and played a part in a movie called Smoke-Filled Lungs. And it's about what happens to our vets when they come back. There is PTSD. You can't watch your friends getting blown up and you getting shot and injured and without coming back without PTSD. But what we do is we medicate them. We put them on a cocktail of antidepressants, and they get their morphine, and they become drug addicts, and their lives are ruined. And some become homeless, and some are just living in and out of the VA hospital. And it's very, very sad. And there is a guy out there called Miguel Vega who was he had to get off his drugs and turn his life around, because he said, "I fought the worst enemies over there. I came back, now I'm fighting the psychiatrists, and I'm fighting the medical system over here. What is this?" So he's created a whole, I think it's called Warriors something. Anyway, it's a beautiful foundation where he takes vets and tries to rehabilitate them through hormone balancing and eating right and yoga and proper therapy, not drugs. But I just finished doing this movie that is about that story, where this vet, and the beauty of it is the guy that wrote it is a Navy SEAL who knew Chris Kyle. They were best friends. And he wrote this movie about him coming home, and it's based on a true story of him being drugged out of his mind through the injury that he got. And his nephew is being bullied because his dad got killed in the war, and they're forced to take a road trip together, and they literally help each other through this dark time. And I had to put together a knife fight and some altercations and things like that. And these guys are amazing. He brought in some of his Navy SEAL friends. One played a cop, another one played a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL that turned homeless. And it was pretty interesting. At the end of the movie, they wind up in the same rehab and find out that they were both in the war together and what happens to you afterwards. But I was teaching them some knife techniques so that I could get this altercation where this homeless guy comes up and drags him out of the car. He's paralyzed because of an injury. Okay. Not permanently, but can't use his legs right now. So the homeless guy drags him out of the car, and there's an altercation that takes place on the ground, and then the homeless guy mounts him and pulls a knife out, and I had to work this whole knife, disarm, take away and stuff. And I was teaching them. I felt kind of funny because I was teaching them. I'm like,
these are badass guys.
These are badass guys in 70-something countries and have kills to their name.
Sure.
But their kills today are war. Like you mentioned something about World War II or World War I or all the other wars. That's hand-to-hand combat. Today, there's not, the only hand-to-hand combat really is on the streets when people are getting attacked or women are getting raped. They're really good with guns. Man,
things are at a distance now.
Yeah, but we push a button and missiles go out,
right.
And then they got their guns or their snipers or whatever like that. But there's very little hand-to-hand combat. So if they're, and I'm sure they learned, but unless you're doing the techniques like I do day after day after day with knife, gun disarms, stick disarms, weapons disarms, improvised weapons and things like that, it was interesting teaching them, and they dug it. I mean, they were like, oh, that's cool. Show me this. Show me that.
No, that's a really interesting point. I also want to bring to the audience attention here that you have multiple black belts, and then you also have an Israeli discipline also to your forte, I guess. And
my bag of tricks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Krav Maga and Krav Maga combative. Is this something a little bit different?
Well, my black belt, I have a third dan in Arju Kempo, which is 5 combatant styles. It involves your traditional along with kickboxing, grappling, boxing, and all the other, martial arts. It's martial, but it's artsy.
This is what I wanted to get at, because when you look at this Israeli type of techniques, it's not an art. You're there to attack.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you're always there to defend or attack, but it's a different form of art. And so, I mean, my third dan, then I'm first dan in Kakoy Cañete Doce Paras, which is sticks and knives. That's Filipino, which is another combative art. But then I have a brown belt in Hawaiian Kempo, and that's beautiful. I love that. But I'm granted by the Israeli Ministry of Education in level B in what's called Kapop.
Okay.
And Kapop is Krav Panin on Panin, which is face-to-face combat.
Okay.
And it's the same thing, and I study Krav Maga. So it's really combat, face-to-face combat. And it's maximum damage, least amount of effort. Get in, get out. For civilians, get in, get out. For law enforcement, get in and apprehend. For military, get in and kill. Period.
Is there a parallel? Because obviously judo is right next to each other as well. Is there similar parallels because you're just as close face to face? Like obviously there's lots of different arts, but again, most amount of damage, least amount of time, least amount of effort.
Well, your judo and your jiu-jitsu is definitely going to kick in because the one thing is that, I mean, you have to have all your bag of tricks. And no matter what you do, no matter how you get in, there's going to be times where you're going to have to flip someone or somebody's going to go down. I don't like being on the ground, but you better have your ground game.
Sure.
And
that's what might happen the first 3 seconds.
How long does a fight last?
Yeah.
You ever been in a fight?
Lots of times. Look at this face.
Well, that's what plastic surgery's for. But, yeah, I mean, how long does a fight really last? Except for I've been in a barroom brawl that lasted probably at least 5 minutes, but there were at least 40 people involved.
And that's a real barroom brawl.
That was a real one, Silver City, New Mexico, where the last band wasn't canceled. They were shot off the bandstand. But that's another
Don't
story.
try this at home, kids.
Yes, exactly. But the ground game for me, once I got all my black belts and when I'm kickboxing or when I'm doing any of those are sports for me. Mm-hmm. When I'm in street fighting, there is no referee.
no
Man, I
rules.
rip your ears off with 8 pounds of pressure. I'll bite your jugular out. I grab the package, twist, rip, pull it up, and I'm grabbing lip, skin. I'll tear your hair right out of your head.
I believe you.
And I do it with style. No.
Of course. No, this is an interesting point here. It's like, if you're fight coordinating, stunt coordinating, there is a high level of practice, discipline, and realism. I mean, these Navy SEAL guys, they're the real deal, but now you got to do this for film or TV.
Well, now they've turned actors, so now it's a whole nother ballgame. Plus, you got to remember a couple things when you're fight coordinating. Everybody wants something raw today.
What do you mean by raw? Like something badass?
No.
With no finesse?
No, raw is real.
Okay.
Like they want it real. Like when I had, going back to this one scene in Smoke-Filled Lungs, the homeless guy comes up to this former Navy SEAL that was in the car smoking a cigarette, and he's like, "Hey, give me a cigarette." And the guy goes, "No, I'm not going to give you a cigarette." And he goes, "Well, you got some food there. Give me some food." He goes, "No, dude, I'm not going to give you any food." And he goes, "Well, you got money there. Give me some money." And he's like, "Dude, go away." That homeless guy, opens up the door, grabs him by the lapels, and here we've got this ex-Navy SEAL guy with his legs that were all shot up, and he has no stability, so he's hanging on for dear life. We see the fear in his face, hanging on with the steering wheel, and that homeless guy puts his foot on the car and just pulls him back. He lands on his back, and the hero lands on his face, right practically between his legs. And I told him in rehearsal, you crawl right up now. You go into Navy SEAL mode. You crawl up and secure your weapons immediately. There was no like, well, I'm going to put my hand here. I'm going to put my hand here. I said, right now, your emotion takes you right up and you secure his hands immediately. But you can't use your legs. And everything had to be very raw. He had to literally just fight for his life, getting up there, grabbing the wrist. And I told the homeless guy, who was a former Navy SEAL too, flip them over, use your legs, and when you mount them, I want you to pull a knife out and start slashing. And as he did, that's where I had to teach my guy on the ground how to parry, catch, move his upper body. And we didn't want it to look rehearsed. We didn't want it to look stunty. I wanted it to look raw, like you got one guy's a heroin junkie guy who's got no legs to work with. The other guy's a homeless guy who's totally screwed up. And these are two feeling hopeless guys, full of so much anger and pain and torture and torment, and they're both now just kind of fighting for their lives. And you want that raw emotion. You don't need the flips and the flying and now he's gonna hit the wall and do all this. This was just two men fighting for their survival.
And that's the story.
And that's And when I had him parry catch, wrap the knife around the homeless guy's neck.
Why don't you tell the audience what a parry catch is? Briefly.
You kind of windshield wipe. You kind of wipe the hand away.
Okay.
Like if somebody's throwing a punch at you, you take your hand and you open palm and you pat it away. You pat it away, and then you catch with the other hand.
Yeah.
And then he wrapped it around the homeless guy's neck, secured the weapon, and with his other hand pushed his elbow to move his upper body. And by the time the cops came, I had him take the knife out and look at him. And at that point, it had to be just eyeball to eyeball, your raw emotion of our hero saying, "I could kill you right now."
Yeah.
And the homeless guy going, "Why don't you?" I've had it.
Wow, that's pretty moving.
And when he threw the knife, then the cops came and they said, "You want to make charges?" And he goes, "Nah, he's more messed up than me." So they didn't do any charges. At the end of the story, which is so beautiful, is they both wind up in rehab, and they both find out that they were both former Navy SEALs.
Wow, that's a turnaround story. I mean, so all that experience coming through that fight sequence. It's years to develop that particular skill set. Why don't you tell the audience what you do now after all these years, a couple years, right?
Yeah, because I'm only 29.
That's right.
Yeah.
That what your week encompasses in terms of your training?
Well,
Just to stay on top of things, you're going to be throwing
well,
down
I
on the
call
ground.
it staying ready.
Yeah, okay. What's your staying ready workout regime each week?
I run 25 miles a week,
Okay.
so I'm running 5 miles every other day. I lift at the gym 2 times a week. I'm doing chest, shoulders, and tries, and some biceps, and then on Thursdays I'll do legs, back, and abs. Then on Thursdays, I teach Eskrima during the day to the senseis that I'm belting. I'm upgrading them at the dojo. And then Thursday night, I have a free women's class where I teach I Fight for My Life street smart survival skills. So it's a free class, and it's everything watered down from all my training. I water it all down. I say I speak vagina, because it's a language apparently men haven't been able to translate yet. But I can communicate to women and make them do things they never thought they could do, and teach them it's okay to fight for your life.
Sure.
You have a right to live. And a lot of women don't understand that. We've been taught to cross our legs, act like ladies, and don't make waves, and call the cops 911 when you're in trouble. Well, what takes minutes for a cop to get there takes seconds for someone to kill you or injure you.
Sure.
So you better have your skills set down. Plus, every 2 minutes a woman's raped in this country. Every day 1,000 women are physically, sexually assaulted or murdered. Every year there are over 200,000 children kidnapped for sex trafficking. And every week a transgender is murdered.
It's not pretty.
And those are the statistics. What about the ones we haven't heard?
Sure.
So my partner, Jennifer Silverstein, and myself, she was in the Israeli army for 2 years, and she's also in Krav Maga, belted in Krav Maga, and also belted in Kapap. We teamed up, and I started first, but I brought her in because the class got so big. I got like 30 women, and they can come and go. It's a free class, so you don't have to pay for it. But I have these women, and I love it because I get them from 10 years old on up to 80, because they want to learn how to protect themselves. I'm not teaching them how to fight. I'm teaching them how to protect them.
Sure, and I mean, obviously you have the skill set to do that, and obviously it's something that you're very focused on, and you have some experience about defending yourself, because it's for real or for movies. And then the other thing, I remember some
Well,
years...
I went through it myself.
Oh.
I was one of those women. Well, when I finished that, then Saturdays I teach Eskrima, and I do other things, which is sticks and knives. But I grew up in a family. I was born and raised on a ranch.
Okay.
But there were 5 suicides in my family, including my dad.
Wow.
And then after my dad killed himself, my twin sister and I were kidnapped and locked in a house for 6
Jesus.
hours, molested. Then I was molested again at 9, 12, gang raped at 17, died in a car accident when I was 18. So I spent time dying on an operating table, going to the light, coming back, going into a coma, wheelchair for 3 weeks, and then 2 years rehab. That's what started the drugs. And then I got date raped twice at 19, and by the time I was 26, I had... my 3rd drug and alcohol overdose. Those were the biggies. I don't even remember the little ones. But I hit my knees, crawled through the living room, pulled myself up on the stove in the kitchen, and looked up in the air vent where I knew God lived at that moment. And I said, I don't know what you were trying to tell me when I was in the light, but here's the deal. Help me turn my life around. I swear I'll be an image that changes the world. And at that split second, I kind of looked around like, who just said that? But I realized it was my internal soul voice. And I just made a commitment. I'm like, shit, I made a commitment. And I had to stick by it. So all drugs, all smoking, all alcohol, everything absolutely stopped at that moment. And I took my journey into health. And here's where it brought me, to 2 masters and a PhD. And
Good for you. And I mean, obviously this ties into the stunts, because that's not easy on the body. There's maintenance, and now you know your nutrition, you know from the physical aspect, and you certainly know from an emotional aspect as well.
And I got therapy. I mean, I believe, look, I got therapy, but I realized the thing, you can read all the self-help books you want, and you can get all the therapy you want. You can talk to any rabbi, any priest, you name it. But until you are re-engaged in a traumatic situation where this time you come out a winner, you don't rewire that brain. You always think of yourself as a victim. And that's what I figured out from creating my TV show, I Fight for My Life, because I take women who've been raped, stabbed, shot, beaten. I reenact their story for the audience.
Okay.
But then I teach these women only 3 hours of my special fighting
Yeah.
against 7 different attacks. And then the very next day, they're put in an arena with my 4 qualified martial artists that come out, fully padded, and they attack that woman one at a time, and then at the end, they have 2-on-1. And that woman has to fight for her life, something she didn't do the first time she was attacked.
Right.
Only this time, she has skills.
She's got some tools.
Before she didn't. She just laid there, and the adrenaline dump, she became paralytic. And for the rest of her life, okay, survived. I hate that word survivor.
Yeah.
You know, when you survive, I'm a cancer survivor, I'm a rape survivor. That means you're always a victim. When you're a victor, that means you can hold your head up high and you're not looking over your shoulder in fear anymore. Now you look over your shoulder with your hands up like, bring it on, baby.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure those guys are qualified, like you said, that they're bringing in there and they can hold their own. Yeah.
My guys are amazing because they stuntmen, martial artists, family guys, daughters.
Yeah.
You know, teach kids. You got to have a special kind. You can't just bring someone in and like, oh, he looks good, let's have him attack that woman. They got to be prepared to also get their asses kicked.
They're
because
the
some
real
of these
deal.
women, when they switch on, holy crap, they're out of control because all this anger and all this fear and everything is just coming out of them all at once because I gave them permission.
Yeah, it reminds me of one time where you asked me to be one of those guys, and I was like, must have been a dozen stunt women. I'm like, I don't know.
You're chicken, Lauren.
I know. I value my package, but no, that's an incredible story, and I'm glad you shared that with us. That's
Well, we just got a contract from Buck Productions up in Canada. They have over 100 TV shows.
Congratulations.
So that's our showrunner, and now we're hoping that they can take it to Oprah, they can take it to all the networks, and you know, it's not that easy to get a show off the ground. I don't know how Swamp People did it, but maybe I'm just not fat and ugly enough, and I actually speak English. But it's not that easy to get a show off the ground. But I think it's needed, and I think there's no show on my reality show will be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm not showing dysfunction. The only dysfunctional part is what happened to these women.
sure.
But what I am showing is solutions to not only turn this woman's life around, but also for the audience. Some women that are so afraid to even admit that their boyfriend just clocked them and raped them, or that they got attacked, or they're so afraid they don't know what to do. Some of these women will see some of these skills and tools that I'm teaching, and hopefully will inspire them to come forth.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Spice.
You're very welcome.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the influences that you've seen in terms of movies? Something from that really grabbed you, and that you're now implementing. Is there movies that sort of stand out for you? Like we had another guest who was a martial arts background. Enter the Dragon was really one of those pivotal times. Do you have a couple of these movies that sort of did it for you?
Well, I love Enter the Dragon. My dear friend Bob Wall's in it, and you know, how can you not love Bruce Lee?
Why don't you say who Bob Walls is, by the way?
Bob Wall owns...
In Enter the Dragon, who is that character?
Oh, you know what? What's his name?
Well, it's basically the guy that got the
scar on his face.
He's the big white bad man.
Yeah, who was best friends with Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee and all those guys.
Yeah.
And Uncle Gene.
Uncle Gene.
They all hung out together. They were like the Rat Pack. And Bob and I have known each other for years. He owns World Black Belt.
Okay.
You can go to worldblackbelt.com and see Bob Wall.
Nice.
So, you know, Bob is Mr. Martial Arts as it is. But, and I love all those martial arts movies, but they didn't really, I love them now. They didn't inspire me then. I love them now because now being a martial artist, now I'm like, whoa, look at that. But at the time, I grew up as a little girl, absolutely in love with, here it goes, John Wayne,
Okay.
Joan Crawford,
All right.
Gary Cooper, you know, all the cowboys, Rawhide, Eric Fleming, all those the TV shows.
We need to have a cue of that sound rawhide going in the
And
back.
I'm all moving out, I'm a cowboy nerd. But I grew up on a ranch. I used to ride my horse to kindergarten. So
I remember reading that.
yeah, so I am a cowboy nerd, and I'm willing to admit it.
So Westerns, would you say that this was something that sort of was more pronounced as opposed, like you said, martial artists, and now you appreciate it because you are a martial artist?
Yeah, because the thing that I really love about Westerns is that it was the good old American, the time of the country where the bad guy was a bad guy and the good guy was a good guy. And
White hat,
when
black hat.
I look at, let's say, Rifleman
Okay.
and Chuck Connors, that little town, I think about here's a man raising this son and trying to do it with standards, the Bible way and the good book way and everything, and he comes into town and all the citizens try and keep that town safe. And what do they got? One flippin' sheriff. But it's all up to the citizens to keep that town safe. And when there's a
Community.
bad guy, they all get deputized and they go out. Now, what do we have today? We got a whole police force and everybody's sticking their heads in the sand because they don't want to get involved.
You notice that, huh?
And so times have changed. But I love the old Western days. I love just... I know that in a past life, I was probably Annie Oakley or something like that.
Fair enough. And do you see, like, obviously there was a time period the spaghetti westerns made it popular, and then there was like westerns sort of disappeared, and now it's kind of making a bit of a comeback. Obviously there's some differences here. Do those westerns, these current westerns, have any appeal to you now?
Yeah, they do. I mean, anytime I see someone button a saddle, I'm shaking a leg, button a saddle, and hitting the leather. Yeah, I definitely. It's funny because, like, my husband, his grandfather's Bing Crosby.
Right.
So when he hears bagpipes, he literally wells up with tears. He is so spiritually connected to Ireland. When I was on the road for 10 years, I worked places like New Mexico, and I would go to the Indian reservation, the Santo Domingo Pueblo reservation, and when I would hear the drums and hang out with the Indians, I would well up with tears. There's a spiritual connection for me with the West, and I don't feel like I was an Indian in my past life, but I do feel that I was definitely a cowgirl,
Yeah.
and that it was a place of great substance for me. So, and I'm born now. I'm in 2015, and I've chosen to incarnate into this life, but there's memories of past lives for me that go back several different periods, but the one that stands out the most is a Western. And interesting that I was born and raised in a family where my dad was a kind of a cowboy rodeo guy, and also was a doctor, and also was an African safari hunter. You wonder why I'm a vegan. I grew up with rhinoceros heads on the walls and elephant feet for trash cans. But
Can't get away with that stuff
no.
nowadays.
But I mean, there's something about the He-Man, the hero, and the man that makes the choice for right. And we have that today. But in westerns, it's every storyline, you know who the bad guy is and you know who the good guy is.
Sure.
It's not like some crazy Matrix thing.
Yeah. No, that's a valid point. So we know you have a background in martial arts and westerns. You mentioned with Gene LaBelle, like falling down the stairs and doing motorcycles.
I love stair falls.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm a ground pounder. I don't like motorcycles. I stopped doing motorcycles. Because I did a movie with Maria Conchita Alonso, and
Okay.
on this bike, we were going through riverbeds and hitting trees, and oh man, it was. And my kid was 3 years old, and I had a long drive home. And in that long drive, I thought, you know what? When I get on a motorcycle, my heart starts pounding. I'm not real comfortable, and therefore I shouldn't be on a motorcycle. And as a stunt woman or a stunt person, you have to find out what really floats your boat. Don't do something just because you think you're going to make money or somebody says, oh, you can have a job if you can do this. It should really float your boat. Like, you show me 55 feet of stairs, I can't wait to fall down.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you everything, where my earlobe's going to hit, where my backside's going to hit. I want to get up here, flip down. I got it down. You show me 55 feet as a high fall, I'm going to urinate in my pants. I do not like high falls. There's a dead space that I black out. I don't like that.
Sure.
So I drove 2 hours home from this movie. I didn't even say hi to my husband. I just walked right into my computer, pulled up my resume, and deleted motorcycles and high falls. Because I don't think you should do anything that doesn't float your boat.
That brings me to our next question. I think that's a really valid point, and at least you have some... You're speaking from experience, what you want. Like you said, you had a 3-year-old boy there, too. You want to come home to him.
Exactly.
And it's like, you can definitely notice where guys that are family guys and they're single guys. Then there's the guys that are up and coming and adrenaline's coming through, and that's when it becomes a little bit dangerous because they actually don't hear you. The adrenaline's just going through, but you got to be able to handle this and not even think about it. And now you have that skill set, that experience. Now let's look at from your boy now who grew up in that environment, and you mentioned a week ago that he's more pursuing acting, but he's a very talented guy. But where do you see the future in Hollywood for a young, talented man like that?
Well, Luke has a absolutely gorgeous face. He looks like my husband. He got my toes when he came out. I was like, oh, thank God he is mine. looks like we've been cloning my husband, because my husband's pretty gorgeous. But Luke is extremely talented. I put him through. I said, look, you're not going to make it on your looks. I won't let you. You've got to have some talent there.
Yeah.
So when he was 3 years old, I put him in martial arts. I never let him go to school. I didn't want him being indoctrinated by the absolute crap that they teach in school. And I didn't want him to be medicated because he's an indigo child, hyperkinetic, and pretty much knows what he wants to do. And the schools are designed by Hitler to make cookie-cutting puppets. They're not designed for thinkers because you're a troublemaker and then they have to medicate you. So I homeschooled him his whole entire life. And he's a vegan. I raised him as a vegan. I wanted him to be healthy. And he's also never been vaccinated. And he's never been sick a day in his life, other than he was near a child that got a polio vaccine. All vaccines shed. And the polio vaccine shed a Coxsackie virus that hit Luke, his pancreas, and he, in 10 days, was a type 1 diabetic. Right. So you can get diabetes from a virus that they now know. Other than that, he's never been sick, and he's got this long... He knows who he wants to be, and he trains all the time. He's a second-degree martial artist. He trains outside teaching children, and he has his privates, and he also nutritionally counsels them because he's learned from me. And he's an actor. I put him through acting. He's been with Dee Wallace. He's been with Steve, whatever his name is, Al Ruscio. He studied from some of the top actors for 6 years. And so he's got his acting skills, and he studies all the time. He's an absolute nerd when it comes to movies. I mean, if it's Kubrick or anything, if you called him up right now, Lawrence, and you go, oh man, this movie in 1942, the second star, what was her name? He'll go, oh, that was...
Wow.
He's got it. He is, who directed this? All the Japanese movies, everything. He has turned into a complete fanatical movie buff nerd. But like Quentin Tarantino said, don't go to film school, just look films, watch films. If you can study off all these films. Now he's going to go to Columbia Film School, but right now he's working so much, the little punk. He's making more money than me. In fact, I had to borrow some money from him the other day, but he is, I don't want him to be a stuntman, and he doesn't either. But he will do fights. He's amazing because I put him in all these movies. So he knows stunt fighting. He knows a lot of skills. If you want to hoot and a holler, pull up the L.A. King new music video. It's the most homoerotic video you've ever seen in your life. And he's like, Mom, this is really strange. I go, you're getting paid. Just shut up and do it. See, he had to be in his underwear with this other guy, and they had to wrestle all over, and she poured water all down them. She was pulling out their pants.
Oh, no.
It's called X's and O's, and it's all about our ex-lovers. It's hysterical. And he was like, oh, Mom, this is... I said, well, don't look him in the eye, and you'll be okay.
No, that brings me to, there's a lot of different things going on out there. We're just going to refer to it as things. And you see these people who are like my age, who are like the, Antal. Antal, he actually won a Taurus Award the other night. And so I'm proud of him. And then, we've talked about the up and coming guys, which would be like guys in their early 20s. And there's Lane's kid, there's Brett Smers, there's all these talented guys. And I remember talking to Bob Brown about his kids, and they're just like little kids. And he's telling me, and it's like, it's funny, a lot of people, and when you look at the stunt business, you think it's all about testosterone. And almost every single person I know has actually had to deal with NASA. At such a high level, like Bob Brown jumping 220 feet, Lane with his air ramps. I mean, Bob Brown, doing these, anyways, it's translating down to all these kids, and they're going to be the up-and-coming kids in 10, 15 years. They're going to be phenomenal. What's your thoughts on all that?
Well, I think that's great as long as you've got your education and your skills. Nepotism is, I'm all for it. I'll put Luke into any movie, but Luke wants to be an actor. He doesn't want to do stunts, and I don't want him doing stunts either. And my first love is acting. Okay. And I know what happens when you get into stunts. Sometimes they don't think you can act, and then as an actress, they don't think you can do stunts.
Sure.
When I did Star Trek, it was a serious role playing Vixis, a female Klingon, and then they didn't think I could do comedy, so then I went over and started guest starring on a bunch of comedy shows, and then they didn't think I could do drama. They start wanting to categorize you and own you, and I decided I wasn't going to let anybody do that to me.
Sure.
And Luke's starting to feel a little bit of that now. It's like, oh, Mom, they want me to do this stunt, and I don't want to be a stunt man. I want to be an actor. And I go, well, as long as you're playing a part and your face is on camera, you're kind of an action actor
sure.
then at that point.
Yeah.
If they want you to double someone, then you can always say, no, I'm not a stuntman. So, you can do whatever you want to do. As far as these new kids coming up, they are, my God, being trained by some of the best. And the extreme of the extreme. My day you had to be an all-around stunt person. You had to be able to drive, spin a car, crash a car. You had to be able to fly. You had to be able to, fly in a rig. You had to be able to do stair falls. You had to be able to do fire burns. You had to do it all around stunt person. Today, there's some stunt guys that are just like car guys.
Yeah.
Or motorcycle guys. Or they have their specialty, and it's kind of like medicine. But the all-around stunt guy is the guy that's going to be working all the time. Depends, there are clicks. The business is so big now that it depends on, it's all extreme. I think like with Lane Levitt, what's so amazing with Lane Levitt is that he's always pushing the envelope and trying to find the more extreme stunt, but try and make it the safest.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we're going to see these extreme forms of stunts, the least amount of accidents and the least amount of injuries
right.
is the way to go.
Yeah, you make up a really good point, and it kind of ties into when you're talking about motorcycle riding, is that, like you said, you're a ground pounder and you can do 50 foot of stair fall. That's incredible. And then there's guys, like I have 4 guys I have for motorcycle work. So I have one guy who loves to ride a motorcycle off a house. I have another guy who can ride a motorcycle one wheel and shoot a machine gun. I have another guy who can do high speed. And of course, there's a very talented woman by the name of Debbie Evans. She's got a couple of skills,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's probably one of the best riders in the world. So,
and there's car, not just motorcycles.
Yeah, there you go. So there's people that love that, and they're very specialized, and she's working all the time. So why not use those type of people, because they're going to make you look good too? Or are you looking conversely from your son's point of view, the idea that, hey, I don't want to be that stunt person, I want to work on my acting. So there's a lot of range now.
Well, you have to know who you are.
Sure.
You know, that's why when I said, you know what, I don't like high fault, been there, done them. I don't like motorcycles, been there, done them. And you have to know that there is a quota. I knew my quota was coming up fast. That
your time was up.
my time was up on motorcycles and high falls, and you got to respect that. And the thing is, if they call me for a high fall, I'll be just like, nah, you know what? I don't like them. Give it to that girl. She loves them. I could drive down the street with Nancy Thurston Huggins. She'll look at a tall building, go, oh, I'd love to fall off that building. I'm like, you're nuts.
Yeah, honestly.
If it floats your boat, and that's what drives you, and then you're going to be good at it. If it doesn't float your boat, you're not going to be good at it.
Yeah, and also I think the fact that there's also, there's camaraderie, you believe in your fellow man. Like when I've asked Antal can ride, he's a good rider. And I said, Antal, I need something I need this. He's like, Groff. There's no, I can do it. No, Groff. Yeah. He's your guy.
That's the guy
he'll make it look, he's the best at it. So, okay, that's fine.
That's the guy that knows himself.
Yeah.
That's the guy that is doing himself a good favor. And in the law of karma, in the law of the universe, it all comes around.
Yeah.
When you're meant to have that next job, you'll get it.
Sure. So what do you think about the future of action? Since you've seen a couple eras here in some respects, where do you see the future in the next 10 to 15 years, especially with all the superhero influences?
Well, I mean, you're always going to have your CGI and your rigging and all that stuff. But I think some people are kind of getting burnt out on that stuff. I think they want the raw stuff now. I think they really like the hardcore, the realism. And there's first of all, we have entertainment.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the Avengers, I mean, I'm going to get off on that. I'm going to love it. I'm going to love seeing guys flying through buildings and leaping tall buildings, and I'm going to get off on that. But then there's going to be the quality of movie that's raw. And maybe that's why the Westerns are coming back in, because you don't CGI a guy being thrown off a horse and dragged.
Don't need to.
You don't need to. The guys can do it.
Right.
They want to see the guys really doing. I mean, when I hit a wall, I hit a wall. Now, I mean, I can be jerked into a wall, but I'm hitting that wall.
Sure. You are.
You're
also selling it as well.
And I'm selling it, and that's another thing, being an actress. I think in order to be a good stunt person, you have to be an actress or an actor, because you got to be able to play that pain, play that situation. I had Sam Raimi in A Simple Plan, a movie that I did in Minnesota. Damn, it gets cold there. It's like 40 below zero. I'm like, who wants to live here? This is crazy. And I was in a nightgown, and Bill Paxton's supposed to kill me. I'm like, Bill, shoot me already, please. Freezing. But I had to get shotgun blast into my
gut.
Front, my gut or my heart, whatever. And then I was going to be jerked up into a kitchen cupboard. I had to land my face right into the sink, because Sam had this idea that when my face went into the sink, when I flopped out of it, I'd have pasta and broccoli on my face. Like, let's not get too complicated. And he said to me, Spice, it can't look like a stunt. You have to look dead. If it gets stunty, I'll cut it out.
That's where your actress skills.
And I said, well, I'm an actress. I can play dead. And you almost, from all the stuff that we've learned how to take our bullets, take this, take that, when you get a request like that, you have to somehow shut your life. There's a button where you shut your life off, like, whew, I'm dead. But then you have to be in control of your body at the same time. Let's see, I got to hit this cupboard. I'm going to have to turn my head this way, slam it into the sink. Oh, there's a faucet coming out, so I could break my cheekbone. Better miss that. And then he wanted me to fall out to the right because the camera angle and everything he had planned out. And he's like, he was so worried. And I said, I can do this. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you can.
And I did it, and he was really jazzed about it.
Well, it goes to show you, all your different talents. And, I mean, the last thing I wanted to kind of, finish up here with is one time we did that event for the USC students. and we had these scenarios, and we had scenarios for, I think it was for a knife, for a gun, and you gave the different scenario. This is for feature film. You went Born, TV, and Disney. And you had these different scenarios, right? And it was awesome because it was like, you know, Disney's like, hey, don't let me catch you kids around here. And then, of course, all the way to Born, you got all these fancy, you're on the ground, you have a fancy kick to get up, you have a fancy way to kick his ass, and then that just goes to show your experience.
Well, you have to, being a fight coordinator, stunt coordinator, you know, you're pulling everybody together. There's a lot to stunt coordinating. And I've stunt coordinated a lot of shows. I hate it because you have no life. I mean, you're literally at the whim of the producers and the directors, and when everybody's gone home, you're still out and about and next location. I mean, stunt coordinators and like Joel Kramer, stunt coordinator and second unit director, it's a rewarding but thankless job to a certain degree.
Right.
I mean, you know, if you don't have your wife or loved one with you, you'll never see them. But as a fight coordinator, I love going in there and designing the fight per the character.
Right.
You have to paint the picture. I mean, if we got a person that's never thrown a punch before, I can't show them how to throw a perfect punch. I got to show them how to do this in a sloppy way. Now, if it's a guy that looks like he had military experience, now I got to teach him how to throw that punch or stab that person. Is this a comedy? Is this a drama? Is this sci-fi? What is this? Because even in sci-fi, I've had to create some fights that look like we do in, you know, the year 3000.
Right.
You have to be creative enough to bring that fight in tune with your characters and make them look like they don't know or do know what they're doing.
Right.
And then you also have to take in consideration whether it's a comedy or not.
Right.
And TV is a whole nother ballgame. Film, you're going to get a little bit more inserts, your masters, your inserts. You're going to get some really cool stuff that maybe you can throw in. Where on TV, they're like, let's hurry it up.
2 takes or less.
Yeah. So now you want to get the most bang for your buck and tell this, and you want to be able to tell the story. I've done so many fights, but I'll just go back to what I just finished, is the story with this Navy SEAL. His name is, in real life, Jason Cabal. But when Jason was sitting in the car, nobody knows he's in a wheelchair. And the homeless guy, nobody knows anything about him, but when he opens the door and goes to jerk this man out of his car, I said, look, he's hanging on for dear life, the steering wheel, because he can't use his legs. And we're going to have him, as the homeless guy goes back to his back, we have to have Jason face flop. He's got a face flop right down on the ground, which is now tells the story. Jason said, oh, maybe I should tie my legs together. I go, oh, hell no. No, you're going to have to cut your waist off in your mind as an actor. You're going to climb up this man's body and let those legs flop, just the way they would if you were paralyzed. You cannot use those legs.
That is the realism.
There's the rawness and the realism. And I said, and as a former Navy SEAL, as I would always say if I was training with you, secure the weapon, secure the weapon. Well, his hands are weapons. So as he was crawling, I said, Jason, secure his weapons. He immediately grabbed his hands. So I have to tell the story of, oh, this guy does have some military training, but he's also paralyzed. How can I design this and he's also high on heroin.
Right.
You know, how do I make this work? And then this homeless guy who wants to die anyway. So it had to come together and tell this whole story within this brief altercation. So that's you just can't have, okay, we're going to do a fight scene here. He's going to punch here. This guy's going to throw a kick. That doesn't tell a story. You have to be able to tell a story with your action.
Sure, and then you like you said, you have all the details. He's a ex-vet, ex-Navy SEAL. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have his legs. He's on heroin. The other guy's like jonesing as well. So, I mean, that is the story. The fight is almost like a secondary thing of when you think about it, but you have to encompass it all.
Exactly. The fight is a secondary thing. You're absolutely right. But it tells the story.
Right.
So, a lot of the fights that I put together, for other TV shows and other movies and things like that, where I have a 13-year-old girl and she has to be able to. One show I did where she was paralyzed in real life, but when she dreams that she's a superheroine.
Right. Okay.
So I had to then turn her into a superheroine. And she would go back in the 60s where they had all the black martial arts movies that were goofy.
Yeah.
You know? And so we had to kind of design it around that time period. So it is a design. You have to design the fight to fit the characters. But at the same time, you're right. The fight is secondary. Because, I mean, if I took two guys and had them just duke it out, where's the fight? What that's telling me is that they know how to duke it out. It doesn't tell me who they are as characters.
Sure, and I think the last point to that is that you can evaluate the talent where you're at. You got a 13-year little girl, or you have a guy who's an ex-Navy SEAL, or you guy who's been a veteran. Like I've mentioned in past that you get a couple of veterans, and I almost don't have to do any work as a camera operator. They know where the camera is. They will sell it, and it just makes that whole product look good. You've designed it, but now it's going to get into the camera. So I think that...
Well, you definitely, not to interrupt you, but to interrupt you, is the hardest thing in the world for me is to take martial artists or fighters or military guys and put them into stunt fighting, because I have to switch gears.
Right.
When I'm fighting, I move too fast. Those 24 frames, you can't even see my hands through it. And I have to telegraph. I would never telegraph in real life. These guys don't telegraph. These guys shoot straight.
Listen to this, folks. This is like some serious experience here. Honestly, this is the cat's ass as we speak.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to shoot straight down the middle, and I'm going to do it fast, and no camera's going to see what I do. For camera, now I'm going to have to open up, telegraph, allow the camera to see my hand coming in, and that also alerts. I like to use my other hand sometimes as a bridge so that I make sure if I'm touching someone or whatever, I like to be able to mark my space from the guy that I'm hitting and stuff like that, or if I'm hanging on to him or whatever. I know that when I'm hitting him, his face is really off to his shoulder.
Right.
But in real life, I'd be plowing him right in the face. So you have to be able to have that stunt mentality. When I say to some of the people that have never done stunts before, and actors, which can get very scary, go, so where's their face when you hit them? And, oh, it's right there. And I go, no, it's over here. It's over their right shoulder. You're going to grab a pencil, draw it across their face, and slam your hand into this imaginary face over their right shoulder. And that is this vision that we see as stunt people. We see different faces. We see different angles. I know when I'm crossing the frame of the lens. I know what the camera's seeing. Is it behind me? Is it over there? Is this a miss? Is this a hit? Is this going to be a compressed shot? What is all piled up on each other? But if you've never done this type of stuff,
They won't know.
They don't know, so they actually wind up hitting each other in the face. They actually wind up fighting for real. And the problem with that is it doesn't read on camera.
Actually, that is a very valid point. It just doesn't read. And like you said, you know your angles, you know the lens, you can sell it, you know exactly where their face is. That's incredible. That's just a lot of experience here, folks. And I'm hoping that everyone got something from Spice, because she's a very talented gal and been at it for a while. She's speaking from experience, and she's instrumental in bringing a stunt award for the Emmys. Go ahead, Spice.
It took me 7 long years of campaigning, and I was fortunate enough to bring Lane Levitt and Carl Cefalio in with me so that we could break showbiz history and create a stunt peer group at the Academy of Television Arts and Science, and also create a stunt Emmy. And they were the 2 governors to begin the stunt peer group, which was amazing. So always working for the stunt community, wanting to make sure that we're, with the rest of the showbiz people,
Sure.
And being treated with respect and admiration. So it took a long time to get into that Academy of Television Arts and Science.
I bet you did.
But it was well worth the fight, 7 long years. I'm not really in a fight right now, but one of the most amazing stuntmen, Mr. John Wagner, who started his stunt career way back in the 60s and doubled and worked on such films with John Wayne and some of the greats. He created a Hollywood Stuntman's Hall of Fame. And in 1989, unbelievable stuntmen. The lineage is priceless. To go to stuntmens.org and see the members.
Stuntmen's or stuntmen?
Stuntmens.
Oh, okay.
.org.
Okay.
And then he has honorary members such as John Wayne, Jackie Chan, Eric Fleming, Kirk Douglas. So it is time now to induct a new stunt person. And John Wagner actually got in touch with me and said he would love people to email him at johnwagner@hotmail.com.
Okay.
And give suggestions. And my first suggestion, of course, was Debbie Evans.
Okay.
Who's the only female stunt driver on Fast and Furious, and she outrides and outdrives any guy I know. And we have some amazing young stunt people, stunt women. I say young because they're younger than me.
Sure. It's all relative.
Yeah, it is. But, and some old timers too that deserve that recognition. And just as I fought so hard to get recognition in the Stunt Emmy, I believe that people, the stunt people should give recognition to those that deserve it.
Absolutely. And can you give us the email address again, please?
The email address is johnwagner@hotmail.com, and you can go to stuntmen, I believe it's stuntmen.org.
Okay.
And even on Facebook, it's Stunt Stars and Legends.
Okay.
So that's a Facebook page. And John Wagner actually has Falling for Stars because he did stunts for many, many years. And he's still up in his 70s. I think he's still falling off buildings and things.
Imagine that, these stunt people.
Imagine that, the nerve. But anyway, it would be lovely for him to, he lost his museum. He had an amazing museum with saddles and gear and unbelievable clothes and gearboxes and stuff that belonged to some of the greatest stuntmen and actors. And the museum, for some reason, went down, so now he needs donations to hang on to the storage before he can get another museum. So he is looking for donations, and you can go to stuntmen.org, and you can donate freely and check out some of the most amazing photos he draws. He's the most unbelievable artist, and for every inductee, he does a personal portrait, and it's frightening. They look like photographs.
Yeah,
and you can.
I saw them. They are amazing.
They're frightening, and you can see them at the Facebook page, Stunt Stars and Legends.
Yeah, I just want to confirm it is stuntman.org. So we'll have a separate link for Spice's great podcast, and there'll be a separate link for this. And thanks again, Spice, for all your help and contribution to the community.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.